The link between violent videos and crime.
Research is taking place and it will show.
So-called video nasty.
These films not only affect young people,
My mum don't really let me, but I watch them when she's not in.
but I believe they affect dogs as well.
Knowing that children are likely to see
caught up in the video nasty, scared.
Wave of moral outrage.
Films without certificates
on a list circulated by Scotland Yard
in our societies
have been seized on video.
Blaming horror movies.
We don't believe in constraining the media.
Hello, hello, hello! In fact, I'll throw in a cheerful Guten Tag to try and add some levity and a sense of tea time sitcom to episode 5. As I fear, without a deliberate effort to stay out of the dark corners, it might get a bit grim, squalid, and deeply distasteful. Which, dear listener, I don't know, perhaps it should. Treating this subject matter with appropriate regard. Because for episode 5, we're entering genuinely murky waters and the darkest of the dark side of the video nasty phenomena. Because it can't all be sunlight, silliness, and splattery slapstick. Some movies got banned and stayed banned, and even liberal, yurt-dwelling, groovy, free speech radicals might say, yeah, I know, but between you and me, for this one, good riddance. But come on now, Richard. Open the curtains. Sloosh some mouthwash. It, as Wes Craven told us repeatedly in 1972, is only a movie. But, as ever, I'm getting ahead of myself, and perhaps subconsciously wanting to both delay the start and put up lots of warning signs, verbal hazmat suits, and linguistic Kevlar between you, innocent listener, and episode 5. Or I'm just being precious and timid and not displaying the cold rigour and distance that a film historian should. I guess by the end we'll know. But welcome, velkommen! Oh, I did it again. To this, episode 5 of the Video Nasty Review podcast that Apple buried in its T's and C's as, yes, still the one with that British bloke on it, one might refer to as the prime of Miss Jean Siskel.
Let's get the band back together.
Our weekly stroll through Hell's blockbuster, looking at the 100 or so VHS tapes the British government considered too much for the British stomach, which, considering can usually cope with black pudding, Guinness, mushy peas and jellied eels, is something that could pass zombie flesh-eaters through its intestines without so much as a fart. Last time we were together, we slathered Factor 50 all over ourselves and wandered around trying to find the waiting room for the Mad Doctor of Blood Island, one of Eddie Romero's bloody quartet of monsters and mangoes. Today, however, chronologically, we arrive at the first type of particular VHS sensationalism and look at where it came from and why the BBFC briskly took one look at it and sent it packing. 1969's Love Camp 7. And I do think it's appropriate to warn you, it gets pretty damned horrible pretty damned quickly. More horrible than Egyptian caterers macheteing bathing beauties in the bath? Well, oh look, you're here now. Let's stop just jigging about on the shore and dive the hell in. Here's the trailer.
This motion picture is not a figment of the writer's imagination. It is based entirely on actual fact. Be prepared to let us take you inside the barbed wire gates of Love Camp 7.
Both of these officers, having full knowledge of the assignment, have agreed to volunteer to help us.
Your arrest and your subsequent imprisonment into the women's camp has all been prearranged by Captain Kelly.
Perhaps your mission has not been clearly explained to you. For the next 5 days, you are going to be whores for the Third Reich.
Well, ladies, I trust you'll find yourself entirely refreshed after your little shower. I want to welcome you once more to Love Camp 7.
You may find it difficult to believe that this motion picture is true. You may find it incredible that 2 young American women would volunteer to throw themselves into the unspeakable indignities and horrible humiliations of a Nazi love camp in order to serve their country. You will follow the factual story of 2 American girls who are taken prisoner by the Nazi Gestapo and placed in Love Camp 7, a camp where women were used like cattle, entirely to service the pleasures and perversions of the Nazi frontline officers. Love Camp 7 is actually filmed on location where the story took place. It is without a doubt the most total and complete study in reality this theater has ever had the privilege to present to its patrons. You may not find this story amusing. You may find it horrifying, disgusting. Certainly, you will not find it light entertainment. But we guarantee that you will not live long enough to ever forget the things you will witness and experience inside Love Camp 7.
Yeah. Oh, look, listeners, or indeed listeners, we're not going to get anywhere if I keep wincing and apologising and being awfully bunting, Bakelite and bashfully British about every damn scene. It's only a movie, no one was physically harmed in its making, and artistic expression is not for me to uneducatedly sneer at or start drawing up guidelines for, so come on now, what's it all about? Well, Love Camp 7 was directed by Lee Frost from a script created by the pairing of Bob Cressy and Wes Bishop. As is common in these sorts of low-budget affairs, Frost barked his instructions from behind the camera and also takes credit as director of photography. What few special effects we have, and, you know, this is no Avatar, are by someone called Harry Woolman. The producers behind the whole thing were Cressy and Bishop, and Mr. Splatter himself, David F. Friedman, who attentive listeners will remember was the one behind Herschel Gordon Lewis with Blood Feast in 1963, going, Egypt, Playboy bunnies, cannibals, we got a hit! In front of the camera we have, wait a second, who's that? Why, it's writer Bob Cressy again. Well, I suppose if you write and produce and look halfway Teutonic in a commandant's uniform, you will get to play along with the others. Or perhaps you already had the uniform and, no, I'm not going there. Not yet, anyway. Other various Nazi generals, sergeants and captains are portrayed in turn by John Alderman, Bruce Kimball. What? Bruce Campbell?
Sure, what's the matter with you? Did something in the woods do this to you?
No, Bruce Kimball. And even producer Friedman visited the cold one-room set and donned a uniform to hang out with a dozen naked actresses for some reason. Perhaps he was having his typewriter ribbon changed and needed to kill half an hour. The prisoners include performers Maria Leese, Carolyn Appleby and Natasha Steele. If you weren't watching this in the autumn of 1969, and it's been tricky to find specific release dates details as the internet keeps asking me if I'm over 18 every time I want to look it up on another page, then you might have been enjoying Paint Your Wagon.
Come along with Lee Marvin, Clint Eastwood, and Gene Seaberg.
Or They Shoot Horses, Don't They?
Look at us, we're all like this now. Dirty, swollen feet, no sleep.
Which is a film I've never seen, and am unlikely to, but what the hell kind of title is that? They Shoot Horses? And of course, George Lazenby around this time was donning the tux and skis in his one and only Bond role on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
This never happened to the other fella.
Love Camp 7 never got a UK cinema release, as far as I can see. You could see it dubbed if you went to Japan, which is odd, I think, because, you know, the Japanese have such a vanilla Victorian sexual taste. Pokemon porn aside. To be honest, summarising this motion picture effort today, and I'm going out on a naked limb here, it does feel like the work I'm doing at the laptop with reference books, web pages and microphones is the most focused writing this movie has ever been involved with. And I'm including in this the script, the receipts for the swastika flags, and hiring an angry dog to bark at nude Jewish ladies. Anyway, you know, here we go. It's 1969's Love Camp 7, a movie about which one IMDb reviewer wrote, spoilers, the final shootout is kind of cool, and it also meant the movie ended, which was a relief. So, after some standard credits, we start in the present day, where a grey-haired Britishy businessman is consummating a deal with some gruff American, or just closing a deal, as you know most people say. A glass of sherry and over post-contract chit-chat leads to talk of the World War II map that is framed on the wall. This causes Mr. Britishy business chap to get all misty-eyed, and with a Wayne's World wobble, the film becomes a narrated flashback, nay, fleshback, if you like, of his daring-do war story. So it's now the 1940s. The war is deep into its mid-period, and hopelessness abounds in Europe. We're in a bunker of some sort. Army paraphernalia from a local theatrical prop store is all about the place, which, as an aside, is apparently rumoured to be where almost all the budget for this went. Some top brass blokes are talking about a daring rescue plot, having just come from an episode of the British Aren't We Foreigners hilarious sitcom Mind Your Language, School of Accents.
And your name?
Anna Schmidt, German au pair.
Usual German efficiency?
Germans are always efficient.
Japanese. much more efficient.
9 Germans are the best.
Japanese make a much better television and cameras.
Please, let us have no racialism.
Oh, don't be so presentist, Richard. It was a different time then, and you watched it and laughed, and it was a different time then, and yeah. A British boffin scientisty type with some kind of plans for some kind of super rocket jet thing has apparently been captured by the Nazis, or possibly killed. It doesn't really matter which at this point. But his able lab assistant, one Martha Grossman, was captured as well, and she was sent to an Nazi love camp, which is essentially a sort of pseudo-Frenchy brothel, quasi-concentration camp type torture chamber kind of barracks, where tired and weary Nazi officers can take their furlough to relax, drink, play cards, and have violent, whippy, sadomasochistic, angry, slappy sex with naked female prisoners of war.
Ouch!
Imagine Pontins, but my lawyers have told me completely nothing like anything like Pontins at all. I mean, they both have a ball pit, but it probably means different things. Captured assistant, Martha Grossman, has all the knowledge needed to build this deadly, war-winning rocket. They have to stop these plans getting into the hands of the Third Reich. If only they could somehow infiltrate this love camp and get all the details from her. Saving her doesn't appear to be the plan, more just getting her to explain how it's made and then legging it, leaving her to her fate, it would seem, which, I don't know, you'd think the sisterhood would have a problem with, but hell, you know, there's a war on. Cue the arrival of 2 smart female officers, played by Maria Leese and Kathy Williams, who've been trained somehow now to have eidetic memories, like Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory. Whatever they see, read or hear, they remember. These 2 will be parachuted behind enemy lines, picked up, hopefully sent to Love Camp 7, big hope really, where they can get all this info from Martha in 3 quick days before, ta-da, the Allies plan to burst in and rescue them. I mean, why they can't burst in, today, rescue all the prisoners, including Martha, is not really made clear. Writers Crease and Bishop clearly don't want logic to get in the way of the tears and the tits. Okay, so far, so where eagles dare. We have to get our 2 dames to the camp, which is done briskly, and before the viewer knows it, they're being brought to the camp and standing in a line with other female POWs being horribly hosed down by a barky, overacting, black-uniformed SS-type commandant and his troops, while an Alsatian barks at their screams. The man in the cap with the whip is, by the way, writer-producer Cressy. The words Fox and Henhouse spring to mind. To give you an idea of what this looks like, picture Barry Kripke from, The Big Bang Theory.
See? Total crap. You suck, Suey.
Another reference to that. I do watch other things, but, it was on last night. But anyway. But he's fatter than the Big Bang actor John Rose Bowie. Oh, and he's also, of course, a frothing, perverted Nazi with a comedy German accent. Next up, a violently intrusive, abusive, wincing and writhing medical examination follows for all the ladies by a brisk sapphic doctor from the Platz Viking helmet Bella Emberg School of Subtle Characterization, which is all wobbly handheld cameras, naked screaming and plunging fists, and nowhere near enough lube. In fact, naked screaming wobbly camera would have been a much more fitting title for this piece of exploitative drivel. Off to the dorm room now, where the other semi-naked prisoners of war, lolling like bored Amsterdam window displays, lounge around in oddly open-chested boiler suits on the cold iron bunk beds. One of our spies, I forget which one, typical man, they all look the same, pieces of meat, is being a bit difficult with the guards and reluctant to join in willingly in the whole let us beat you and violate you for kicks larks, so is trussed up by some extras in Nazi uniforms and hung dangling by her wrists to the ceiling. She screams and sobs a lot. We sigh, check our watch and feel bad about the whole thing. And now to, I suppose, what the renters of this tape were hoping for, and all the historical Guns of Navarone counterintelligence spy stuff has been getting in the way of. Never has a fast-forward button, methinks, seen such use. Some Nazi guards finally stomp in like it were a cattle market and choose the lovers they want, massive euphemism, to take to their rooms. It's not really a cattle market as such, to be honest, unless of course when you get a dairy herd home, you strip it to the waist and rape it on an iron bed while it whimpers, twists and sobs. One of these Nazis, now the names couldn't be less important, but we'll call him Coburn, as he looks a little like a young James Coburn, and I hate to let you down, but I really can't be asked to match the characters to the rapes, like some grotesque game of Guess Who. Does he have a beard? Does he wear a swastika? Does he like doing it from behind while humming Wagner?
You'll flip over Guess Who from NB Games.
Anyway, Coburn, somehow the heart of the movie with no heart, gets suddenly all emotional as a soldier and sensitive with his lover/rape victim, and complains to her pitifully he's only doing his job, that while he might like all the concentration camps and he can put up with the goose-stepping, and he rather, doesn't mind the master race pension plan, he's not a big fan of this slappy, rapey, boob-mangling humiliation that does now seem a prerequisite for his role. Well, she thinks, this is lovely. So they, of course, have proper consensual sex, which she enjoys, he enjoys, and the video renter at home, trousers round his ankles and a can of Holston pills, probably finds a massive cock softener. The director, Lee Frost, earns his cinematic ironic juxtaposition badge to sew on his Cub Scout uniform as he decides now to cut between back and forth this tender boob noshing and gasping and the other spy getting a teary violent assault. See what he did there? He'd like to thank the Academy. You know what? I've suddenly realised how prudish I sound doing this. I grew up in the 90s. We were told firmly by GQ magazine that nice guys and new men preferred a good moisturiser to sex. And to be honest, I don't think I've ever really recovered.
Escape from men. Calvin Klein.
Anywho, next up, having dried his knob on a swastika presumably, our sensitive Coburn goes to Quipke in order to prove what a nice fascist he is, and he requests a transfer out of this place, away from the unpleasant side of the Reich. SS Quipke, a man's man, laughs this off and punishes weak Coburn by forcing him to work as an assistant in the gruesome medical lab, where hard-working lesbian doctors are trying to perfect sterility by pumping foam and gunk up women's bits. Oh, Coburn, ever wish you'd ever just kept your mouth shut? Oh, I almost forgot, typical man. The spy tied to the ceiling, remember her? Naked and swinging, but not in that 1970s crankies way. Well, she is eventually cut down, but then of course made to crawl naked on the cold floor and lick the commandant's boots. Which she does, to be honest, but with a real lack of gusto, like a millennial asked to work on a Saturday. And then of course, to complete her punishment, she's taken to a torture room to be stripped and whipped. God, what next, and how much more of this awfulness is there? Well, the two spies and some of their other captors, due to their exemplary attendance record and the TripAdvisor scores, have all been now promoted to see only senior officers. I suppose everyone gets a promotion like this at some point. Same gig, just buggered by your boss's boss instead. So the women are marched tediously into another room, although it's clearly, by the way, just the same room with some hardboard put up, where we are then subjected to them being assaulted, pushed about and fondled by men in slightly snappier Nazi gear, or caps and whips. Throughout all this, I should tell you, by the way, in case one was to accidentally mistake this based on true events, harrowing documentary for just uniforms and boobs titillating tripe, there is an attempt at legitimization and academic Max Hastingsy clipped narration throughout from our anecdote-spinning businessman in his office. So it's a bit like The World at War, but instead of Chamberlain, you can see Minge. Where were we? Yeah, sadly, still here. And now the boss is coming over for dinner. What? Yes, a tippity-top Nazi SS chap arrives. One of those stern hair flick inspections you always get in these things. Men in long leather coats lifting up papers with the end of their shooting sticks and tutting. This chap criticises SS Quipke for his shabby treatment of his officers and promptly asks for recompense. A gift voucher? Time off in lieu? No, it appears he'll overlook the half-assed way Quipke is providing the free, starved sex slaves to his men and accept 4 of the women stripping off for him and sort of half-heartedly lesing up with ineffectual moans and gropes while he watches. So now we get, that. Meanwhile, exciting, isn't it? Spy number 2 finds herself with, you guessed it, what are the chances? Martha Grossman. Martha spills all the beans about the rocket jet plan thing, somehow explaining all the science, physics, chemistry, ballistics, schematics, and details from memory, while the spy nods along, both of them pretending they're not topless. And then, dear listener, something amazing and unexpected happens. Honestly, there I was, scribbling notes and checking my thesaurus for synonyms of degrading and unhygienic, when whatever obscure streaming service I'd unearthed this on, swastikasandsluttsondemand.com, or whatever the fuck it was, suddenly had an audio problem. And it would be a lie if I said this wasn't the most stimulating part of the whole tedious 96 damn minutes. So, for the final quarter of an hour of the movie, I was sadly unable to hear the sparkling THX crystal clear sharpness of the phrases such as "Jawohl" and "You like that, you Jew bitch," and "Ow, ow, you're on my hair," which was, a bit of a shame. But the woman who'd uploaded the video, I always assume it's a woman, instead just looped the available audio track she had over the end. So what I watched was the last 15 minutes of pictures mixed with the first 15 minutes of sound all over again. So there I was, watching lingerie-draped waifs fake a mixture of bored and violent intercourse with some lackadaisical Nazi officers in a sort of compilation orgy best of, now that's what I call Munich, repellent romp, while we hear the title music and Mr. Britishy businessman seal his business deal again and talk about maps over dry sherry. So, dear band fans, without leaving you shortchanged, I'm going to have to surmise the ending based on the visuals alone, which, of course, is an absolute piece of piss. From what I can tell, the women plan to seduce all the generals and catch them off guard with their trousers down or horny and distracted, at which point the brave allies can burst in to rescue them. And then, in some feeble I spit on your grave justice/comeuppance, the women can dispatch all the Nazis with some sense of satisfaction, with beatings, shootings, and a lovely skewering in the neck with a corkscrew. Lots of flailing in blood and boobs bouncing about. So this is essentially what happens, allowing them to escape. Wayne's World wibbly wobbly again. And as if by magic, we're back to the prologue, where the old Brit is ending his hilarious tale of escapes, spies, intrigue, and violent genital violation. I can't tell exactly what they're saying, but gee buddy, that's quite a tale is probably in there. Maybe even, and what happened to those poor girls? But the Brit leaves. Gets in a cab to go home, meeting up with his lovely demure wife, who is one of the spies. But of course now in old age makeup. See, he married one of them. So, it sort of all works out, doesn't it? The Allies won the war and, tits. So, hooray! Except, of course, obviously this is the least watchable of any of the films we've seen so far, and I'm just going to stop now. Right then, is it any good? Well, I suppose, I don't know, are we grading on a curve? Because is it any good is a rather difficult question. Is it a good film? Just well crafted, performed, produced and displayed, demonstrating creativity and storytelling at its cinematic best? Well, no, of course it fucking isn't. But is it a harmlessly titillating, pervy bit of soft-core boobs and whips nonsense designed just to appeal to a certain type of lonely World War II buff who has 90 minutes to kill and can get in a quick wank before his mum knocks on the door? Well, no, it's not really that either. Is it a fine example of something called Nazi exploitation, which Wikipedia calls, quote, a subgenre of exploitation film and sexploitation film involving Nazis committing sex crimes, often as camp or prison overseers during World War II? Most follow the women in prison formula, only relocated to a concentration camp, extermination camp or Nazi brothel, and with an added emphasis on sadism, gore and degradation. Well then, I suppose it is. It's that. The director, Lee Frost, a native of Arizona, was in his mid-30s and already a busy jobbing director when he teamed up again with David Friedman to put Love Camp 7 in the can. First employed in California for the small Telepix studio making commercials, he, much like Herschel Gordon Lewis, fell into producing those nudie cuties, and the world first saw what he could do with a bikini, a beach ball, 2 boobs and a roll of Kodak film in 1962 when he directed his first movie, Surf Tide 77.
But I thought the missing niece was to be 23 today. I've had a rough life.
A rompy comedy in which, quote, Private Eye Bernard Bing Bang, is hired by Lady Agatha Bungworthy to find her runaway niece Cynthia. A plot, I believe, loosely based on Anna Karenina. Much like Gordon Lewis, he's on record as saying, I wasn't interested in what people thought of the films. I was just looking for another project. Let's get another script. Let's shoot again. If we made any money on it, fine. If we didn't, fine. I was never into the business end of it. Lord, I don't know where he's from with that voice. He had a productive next 7 years, cutting his teeth as director, writer and cinematographer on 11 movies, including Love is a Four-Letter Word, Hollywood's World of Flesh, and of course Mondo Bizarro.
This 60-foot tower was created by sculptor Mark de Silvero of New York in protest against America's involvement in the unpleasantness in Vietnam.
Then in 1969 he put together Love Camp 7, and in doing so, it is said, virtually curated this women in prison genre of exploitation picture. Films such as 1971's Women in Cages and 72's The Big Bird Cage.
A strange yet brutal world of men who are only half men and women who are more than all woman.
Where do you want to be buried?
Both giving the world an early glimpse of the now legendary Pam Foxy Brown Greer,
And it's Miss to you.
of whom much more will be said later when we reach 1974 and she appears on the DPP list herself.
Pam Grier, that one chick hit squad who creamed you as coffee, is back to do a job on the mob.
Now, IMDb, the website, rates Frost highly, calling him, quote, one of the best, most talented and versatile filmmakers in the annals of exploitation cinema. But of course, it leaves me to think, what the hell's that? I'll be honest, I was always slightly confused by films in the exploitation genre as a lad, your John Waters-style schlockers being always tagged with this sort of label.
Film lives here, deep inside my black little heart.
I mean, what was being exploited exactly? The cast? Were they not paying them? The crew? The audience? Was it us? And when it came to genre offshoots with specific themes such as blaxploitation and of course nunsploitation,
Love and love-making are very liberating experiences. Very.
This is a monastery under siege and we must pray to Almighty God.
again, I was just left as a teenager scratching my head. Is black culture being exploited somehow to make this movie? Are nuns being exploited? I mean, what exactly is going on here? Reading a little further, it seems, and I'm sure there are cinephiles and cineasts with their own sort of definition, but exploitation cinema simply is exploiting, at the time, whatever is currently on vogue in order to make, some quick cash. So I suppose you could say Victoria and David are both living in fear of the rise of a Bexploitation movie. Add a few muscles, Flexploitation movie. Shoot it south the border, Mexploitation. Oh, it's turned into a Radio 4 panel game. So you take a newspaper fear, such as Asbos or hoodies, for example, scaremongering stories of feral knife-wielding, skateboarding tearaways and ruffians filling the newspaper. The Daily Mail has a hysterical op-ed piece about the state of the nation. By all things godly, what's it coming to? No, think of the children. And then quick-thinking filmmakers can ride the wave of the cultural impact and release a movie like Eden Lake.
I just want my car back. Car keys, phone, wallet. You've had your fun.
Now we've got to finish this.
And cash in on the mood of the people. The theme, mood, class, grouping, politics or attitude you wish to exploit can of course be anything. Hence the genre of teen-sploitation with Bikini Beach.
Everybody's going to Bikini Beach to have fun in the sun with that musical beach party gang. Frankie Avalon.
Mexploitation, which is real. Films like Machete.
They called him Machete. $70 a day for yard work. 100 for roofing.
Have you ever killed anyone before?
And of course everyone's favourite, Sharksploitation with the Sharknado series.
I'm not going anywhere.
Storm's coming and it's coming fast. Just can't sit back and watch this.
So who's been exploited in Love Camp 7? Well, I suppose it appears almost everybody. But the taboo, shock, the terror, the think of the kiddies, hateful sadism of Nazi war crimes, and the fear of the unknown horrors of camps and doctors and evil SS maniacs, I suppose, is being exploited here to try and drum up some creepy, sweaty fascination, I guess, for what is a rather humdrum, if toe-curlingly sadistic, beneath-the-counter bit of grubby porn. It's incredibly cheap looking. What budget there was clearly going on renting convincing, albeit ill-fitting, Nazi uniforms. One assumes that historical accuracy is important to the porny Nazi crossover market, and nothing is going to put one off one stroke more than a misplaced insignia or error in a rank badge. Clearly all filmed in one small studio on one soundstage, the props, desks, swastikas, Adolf busts, bunk beds, have been slid in and out of the one camera setup. You remember Prisoner Cell Block H? Ring any bells? The Australian women's prison soap opera.
Shut up! Understand? Shut up!
He used to give me roses.
Well, make that on half the budget, strip all the cast down to their knickers and bung in some jackboots. That's what we have here. The acting and whatnot are as piss poor as you might imagine, I'm afraid. I wish I could say there was diamonds in the rough, but it's just all rough. Stilted, shouty, camp, dumb and over the top. Think Confessions of a Window Cleaner meets Allo Allo on the set of Emmanuel, if that's something you'd enjoy thinking about. The film, frankly, has nothing whatsoever going for it, in my opinion. The Nazis are unconvincing, the sex is grubby, nasty, violent and unpleasant. The gore in the final shootout is literally just ketchup and reaction shots. A MacGuffin of a spy plot cobbled together to string a load of slapping, fondling, crying and Heil Hitlering to make a nasty little piece of crap seem 2% more taboo. And nasty though? Does it really belong on the list? Well, fuck yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of porn in the world, apparently. Hard, soft, presumably something in the middle, black, Latino, dwarves, POV, teen, bondage, threesomes, fetish, you name it. It's difficult to imagine a word you could hyphenate with porn and not get some kind of dark web hit. Animal porn, probably millions of hits. Bus driver porn, probably just as many. Hasidic porn, I don't know, you check it out. It's putting the whack certainly into Google whack. So it stands to reason that finding folk who like one thing, steam trains, Tupperware, horse brasses, and draping some boobs over the top gives you a niche bit of VHS to sell. What's disturbing, of course, is that films like these have added nudity and sex to things like Nazism, violence, butchery, degradation, torture, rape and humiliation. So our target market here is a viewer who's either seen Confessions of a Driving Instructor but was disappointed that Timmy Lee didn't tie any of the buxom wives to an iron bed and whip them till they screamed, or people who've watched The World at War and thought could have done with a bit more tits. Or I guess, Prince Harry. People like this must exist, and the Nazi exploitation market blossomed, kept alive from the 70s until it died out around the mid-80s. One has to assume no animals or people were harmed during the making of this motion picture, but I suppose what it says about the viewer's tastes could lead to some troubling psychotherapy sessions. Did banning it help? Does it help? I mean, I feel about this stuff like I do about many niche interests. Just make it very, very hard to find by accident. That seems to be the thing. Make it viewable at a cost for adults on some kind of subscription setup. Get it off the shelves of W.H. Smith, certainly. Will folk who get off on this stuff resort to recreations, violent reenactments and rape if they can't find this sort of 2D outlet for their lusts? Oh, I don't know, but for Christ's sakes, if you have to make this stuff, just make it better. It may be politically appalling, the worst taste, and unforgivably exploitative, but then cinema often is. You could at least write in some jokes and light the damn set properly. Of what are we reminded by this? As I said, it's Prisoner Cell Block H meets Confessions of a Gestapo Cleaner and Allo Allo, shot over a weekend by some Amdram wannabes who've got pissed on Lee Prowmilch. Where can you find it? Where did it come from? Must you, though? Must you look for it? Oh well, don't say I didn't warn you. A cursory search tells me that it was released originally in the US in 1969. A helpful site called videocollector.co.uk will happily show you a scan of what it claims to be the UK VHS box cover, although it was also available in Betamax, released by Market Video from London's Peckham, and a second image they've got of a VHS tape distributed by Abbey Video, based appropriately in Horsforth in Leeds, although that's dated on the site as 1968. It was seized during the panic in 1983, as we know, by the BBFC for review under the Obscene Publications Act and was, of course, denied a release and banned. Any traders caught renting it facing fines and possible imprisonment. The movie vanished, therefore, unofficially, unseized copies doing the rounds illegally until it was presented again in 2002 to the BBFC, who promptly declined the video certificate once more. In 2020, it was submitted again by streaming services for reconsideration. However, the BBFC just continued to uphold their rejection. Today, a pre-certified illegal VHS copy could set you back over £300, apparently. Or, of course, you could just take a quick trip south, as the Aussies, however, having originally banned it, reconsidered it in 2005, and it's now available down under, past uncut. Before we talk about what's next on our naughty list, don't forget bonus feature-length episodes with interviews, insights, sequels and all things horror history are available on Let's Get the Band's X-Rated Extras. Subscribe via Patreon or Apple Podcasts. Just a few little somethings from under the counter in brown wrapper for you discerning horror connoisseurs. Enough of that, let's see what we have to look forward to. Next time on Let's Get the Band Back Together, it's... Oh dear.
Once upon a time, there was a magical kingdom. A land of fertile fields and dark forests. And everyone was busy all the time. It was here that two brothers came one day with their fortune to seek adventure, and it was here that lived Snow White, Cinderella, and Sleeping Beauty. You know all about these lovely maidens, or do you? Now it can be told. The true story, where men were men and women were women. But they found the wicked queen, the evil stepsisters, a nice old devil, and the blue witch.
As it was known in its original German, Grimm's Fairy Tales of Lustful Couples, we have the 1969 bawdy sex comedy set among castles, enchanted animals, princes, glass slippers and 7 lusty dwarves, a film hot enough to defrost Walt Disney, the baffling adult romp, The New Adventures of Snow White, putting the ho into hi ho, hi ho, hi ho. I'll see you there.